Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You can be seated. Oh, it's so good to be here with my Cornerstone, Pasco, Washington family. Thank you so much for being so hospitable and nice to me since 2018. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow along actual Bible, Leviticus 16, we're going to talk about the riveting book of Leviticus here in a little bit. And trust me, it's going to go somewhere really, really cool. If you don't know me, my name's Shane. This is all I do for a living. I travel around the world. I've had the incredible privilege of being mentored by a pastor who just happens to have his rabbi training as well. So my stuff tends to come from that. But I also have a master's degree in clinical psychology. So I am qualified to sort your head out. So careful what you say to me. I can see through all that stuff. After this is over, we do have a small resource table there at the back with our teaching resources on it. Everything's available, audio, video. We don't have hard copy anything anymore. There's no USBs. Everything's direct downloads. And so what we do is all the series have anywhere from 4 to 11 in each one, and they're all the same price. And so you just tell me how many you want. We give you a card with a preloaded amount on it, and then you can go to our download store, and you have full access to everything there. So if you buy one, you can get one. If you buy two, you get two, but you're not limited to just what you see there. Now, the reason we do that is two reasons. One, we want to resource people well. I don't want your primary theological education coming from TikTok. That's not good. The other thing is we take Matthew 25 very seriously. Matthew 25 is when Jesus said, what you did to the least of these, you did it to me. And if you didn't do it to the least of these, you didn't do it to me. Now, however seriously you want to take that, I don't mind. That's between you and God. But at the very least, if the person who died for us is telling us what's important to him, at the very least, it should be important to us. And so we use the profit from that. We have 3 children's homes in China that look after children with disabilities, 2 in Hinyang, 1 in Changsha. So we give them a regular monthly amount, and then 3 or 4 times a year we get to pay for life-saving or life-changing surgeries. The last one we got to pay for was a hip dysplasia, which isn't life-saving literally, but it kind of is. Look, if you were going to be crippled and then you're not going to be crippled, that's a better day. And so what we're trying to do is invade someone's life with surprise, hope, wonder, awe, astonishment, amazement, resurrection. The idea that your tomorrow is not simply a repeat of yesterday. And so if you'd come back there, let me put something in your hands that change the way you look at God. You put something in our hands that helps us feed, clothe, shelter, educate children with disabilities. I think it's a pretty good trade. The only thing I would ask is that if you don't want anything, God bless. I'll see you next time I come through. Nothing but love for you. If you do want something, if you'd come by in the first 10 minutes, that'd be awesome. The reason is because Cornerstone has a real chatting afterwards culture. And I think that's awesome. I think it's better than not liking one another. And so if you don't want anything, just chat away. But if you want something, if you would buy first and chat second, that would be amazing. The reason is because there's certain things I can't control. You can ask anybody that knows me. I'm a really nice person. I don't run to a green room. You don't have a green room here anyway, but I wouldn't be there anyway. I'd rather be talking to you. But I can't control the time of planes that I have to catch. And I'd love to eat before I get on it because Allegiant Airways doesn't feed you, right? And so, but they're very convenient if you got to go to certain places, right? And so, if you could do that, that would be awesome. All right, so I get to open the Bible today, and I take that really seriously. And anytime I do that, I want Jesus to get bigger, the cross to work better, the resurrection to be central, and scriptures to get bigger, not smaller. I hope that's going to be your experience here today. I'd like to shout out to Joey and Meredith. Thank you so much for being my friends for so many years. And what he said earlier was true. They both live by sowing. And they understand these principles. They're generous, they're kind, they're the real deal, and understand how things work. And you're blessed to have some of the great pastors in the world here. And so, I'm honored to call them my friend. And thank you so much for what you've done up here. You've been amazing. I told Meredith that you have, and I mean this. I mean this in the spiritual sense because you have weight, right? Like there's razor sharp, and razor sharp will cut hair, right? Or do surgery. But then there's axe sharp, and an axe will chop down a tree. And you have that weight behind your sharpness. And that starts with your first instrument, which is your voice. And then she told me you learned this, like recently. Wow, amazing. Great job today. All right, so I want to talk to you about how to handle regret. Now that should make everybody perk up. So here's what I want you to do. could you do me a favor? If you could take a second and cancel the white noise of your week. Everybody's got white noise in their week. Cancel the white noise of the week long enough to be fully present for roughly 35 minutes and see what God might do. If you're here but your mind's somewhere else, you can't then wonder why the spiritual stuff doesn't work for you. And it's not that you're bad. It's just if you're here but you're actually there, you can miss what's going on here. And then what happens is later when you get there, you wonder what you missed here. And there's a gift that Jesus calls us to be fully present right now. And let's see what happens. I want to talk to you about how to handle failure, regret. The quality of your life will largely come down to how you handle regret, not how you handle success. And more importantly, probably, the quality of our life will oftentimes come down to how we handle other people's regrets. Because bitterness rots to the bone and defiles many. It's not something you could just get away. Let me illustrate this. If you I'm talking about the things in your life that you pray to God never end up on the internet. I'm talking about the things in your life that if you had a mulligan or a do-over, you would take it, and people treat you as if you have a do-over, but you don't have a do-over. You just have to live with the consequences of it. I'm talking about when you meet a new group of people, how much of your story do you tell to this new group of people? Because they might think less of you. But this thing happened 14 years ago, and that was 15 shames ago. And I'm not that person, and I don't want to be known for my worst day. And I finally meet a new group of people that don't know anything about that. Am I obliged to tell them? And if I don't tell them and they find out, do they think I'm a liar, or do they just realize it was none of their business? And what do we do with those things? This is an age-old question, and thank God we don't live in ancient Sumerian culture. In ancient Sumerian culture, if you thought you'd made a mistake and you'd offended the gods might withhold rain on everybody. And so to get right with God, you had to cut yourself. The problem was that they didn't know what to cut or how much of what to cut. So in one sect of ancient Sumerian culture, they just said, just cut till it rains. Well, they didn't live in Washington State. They lived in Iraq, right? The arms would be falling off. Right? Now, we've evolved past that, but not much. In the 1500s, a Christian monk wrote in his diary, I prayed on my knees on stone floors until they bled, which leads to this question. What kind of God are we picturing in our head that would take pleasure on us doing pain to ourselves just so he could be who he is? How much do we actually believe that our lack of faithfulness will compromise God's faithfulness? That creates a real problem. And so the earliest answer in the Bible, I think, is still the best first answer. Here was the earliest answer in the Bible on what you do with regret. Here's what they did. This is genius stuff, right? Here's what they did. They set aside one day a year, and that day was called Yom Kippur. Don't get hung up on that. Yom, day, Kippur, atonement, the Day of Atonement. Okay? So they set aside one day a year. It was the holiest day of the year, and here was the brilliance in it. The only day of the year where the command was Shabbat Shabbaton, absolutely no work. No one is allowed to do anything on this day, because on this day, God is going to forgive every sin in the entire community and give everybody a fresh start, a second chance, a clean slate, and the opportunity to sow new seeds and write a better story. This day happened to coincide with when their fields were plowed and ready for harvest. Ready for sowing. Harvest had happened in June. Their fields were ready for new seeds. And the idea is what's true of your field is true of your heart, right? The fact that you have an opportunity to sow a new seed and get a different harvest, that's true literally in your field, but it's also true in your heart. Like next year, you can sow the same seeds of anger and get the same harvest of bitterness if you'd like. You can sow the same seeds of doubt and get the same harvest of cynicism if you like. But you also can sow a different seed and get a different harvest. And every year, if you come back with the same exact regrets, God is faithful to forgive you every single time, because your lack of faithfulness never compromises who God is. That's what true strength is no matter how you treat me, it won't motivate me to act outside of who I am, right? And so what they did is they set aside, if I could use a bucket as an illustration, everybody, we're going to put our bucket, and this on their calendar happened 10 days after New Year's Day. So roughly a week after New Year's Day, they would make a commitment. I'm not carrying last year's regrets into this year. Not going to do that. right? We're gonna empty our buckets. And here's the principle, right? The principle is that if we don't have a regular ritual by which we let it go for ourselves and let it go for them, then the next year we get 2 buckets. And then the next year we get 3 buckets. And if we don't have a regular ritual by which we let it all go, one day we'll wake up and we'll need a crane to pick up our life. It's just so heavy. And so they put aside this day for everybody to celebrate their bucket of regret emptying, not just for you, but for that person. Because you can't want mercy for yourself and then justice for everybody else. That doesn't work. And the beauty of it was no one was allowed to do anything. Because here's the reason why, right? Here's why that's beautiful. Because if you allow human beings to do something on a day that God's forgiving all sins, someone's going to start claiming it's what they did that forced God's hand to act. It's because we sang loud enough, or we danced hard enough, or we blew horns, or we prophesied greatly, or we did certain rituals. Not on this day. On this day, no one could do anything so that no one could boast. Now, here's my goal with today. My goal is I want to empower you to handle your own regret. But then more importantly, I want us to empower ourselves to handle other people's regrets and feel the freedom of letting it go for them too. Third, I want you to fall in love with Jesus more. And fourth, I want us to understand the power of celebration. All in about 30 minutes. I think I might have bitten off more than I can chew. We'll see, right? So here is the account of this day. This is Leviticus 16. If you could bring that first slide up for me. This is Leviticus 16. This is Moses' account of this incredible day. Aaron is to offer the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household. Then he is to take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. So next slide. This day centers around 2 goats. One is the goat for the Lord and the other is the goat for the scapegoat. To make it very, very simple and caricatured, you have 2 goats. You cast lots for the 2 goats. The one lot falls to the Lord. It's going to be a bad day for that goat. But let's just be honest. If you're born a goat, it's already a bad day. That's that, right? The next goat was a live goat. And here was the live goat's idea. The live goat was to show everybody in public what the other goat had accomplished in private, because people don't tend to believe things without seeing it. By the way, that's exactly how the New Testament frames Jesus, that everything was accomplished before the foundation of the world, but people wouldn't believe it without seeing it, so Jesus humbly showed us the truth. So the gospel writers frame the meaning of Jesus around a Yom Kippur ceremony, and that makes sense. They're writing to Jewish people, and they're like, here's something you understand. Let me take something you understand and explain the meaning of Jesus. Now, the word scapegoat, the word translated scapegoat, is a weird word in Hebrew. The word is Azazel. Now, I'm going to take a risk here, and you guys are a vocal group of people, but with some go Cowboys, Seahawks, whoever you cheer for, gusto, University of Washington Huskies, Washington State Cougars, whatever, right? Whoever you pull for, I want us to try to say that word because it's very, very important. The word sounds like this: Azazel. Let's try that with some gusto. Ready, go. Azazel. Now, Azazel is a strange word because it actually takes a verb form. It's take him away. So it means to remove him, to take him away. It can also mean a weapon in the hand of the enemy. In other words, whatever the enemy's using to beat you up, normally your own failure, we're going to remove it. We're going to take him away. Azazel was such a powerful metaphor that it made its way into modern mythology. So if you're an X-Men fan, like from the Marvel Comics, X-Men, one of the X-Men, his name is Azazel, spelled the same way. And his power is if he can grab you, he can make you disappear. He can remove you. He can take you away. So this day centered around 2 goats. 1 goat for the Lord, and the other goat, what was his name? Everybody together, Azazel. And Azazel means take him away. Next slide. This is how it goes. Next slide. Aaron shall bring the goat whose lot falls to the Lord and sacrifice it for a sin offering. But the goat chosen by Lot as the Azazel shall be presented alive before the Lord to be used for making atonement by sending it away into the desert as the Azazel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly walk you through a caricatured, simple Yom Kippur ceremony. And the goal of it is not to just teach you about Yom Kippur. The goal of it is to show you the meaning of Jesus. Like the gospel writer Matthew used this to sort of frame what Jesus meant to the world. So first, the goat for the Lord. Next slide. The priest would take the goat for the Lord inside. No one else was there except him and whatever he needed. And they would tie the goat to the altar. So if everybody brings your bucket of regret, everybody's got all your failure, everybody's got all that, we're going to put it on this goat. And what they would do is they would malah, laying on of hands. They would impart all the sins and regret and the failure onto this goat. Now, the Talmud says that the pressure of putting all the sins on the goat caused the priest to turn his head. So the picture is this. Hang on a second. The gospel writers say that when the Father put the sins of the whole world onto Jesus, he had to turn his head. This is Yom Kippur language. To a Jewish audience, that would be like, oh my goodness, are we witnessing the day that God just lets it all go? Is God letting it all go for all of us? The next part of the ceremony was called the press. The priest would lay on the goat and squeeze the sins into the goat. Like it was the idea was we really need to get the sins in the goat. The play on words, though, is that the Hebrew word for press is Gethsemane. So the gospel writers say that Jesus went to the garden of, the place of the press. And remember his prayer? Jesus says, Father, I'm now pressed with the sins of the whole world. This is all Yom Kippur language. This is like, is this the day God just lets it all go? The next part of the ceremony was called It Is Finished. At exactly the 9th hour, the priest would proclaim in a loud voice, It is finished. And he would cut the goat's throat. The gospel writers say at exactly the 9th hour, Jesus proclaimed in a loud voice, It is finished. This is all Yom Kippur. This is like, wait a minute. Are we watching the living incarnation of God letting this whole thing go? They would then catch the goat's blood in this cone-shaped cylinder, broad at the top, narrow at the bottom, and they would swirl it because the blood had to stay alive. And he would walk from the altar to the Holy of Holies saying these 3 words, Don't touch me, don't touch me. I have not yet offered the blood of the sacrifice. Don't touch me, don't touch me. Hold on a second. The gospel writers say that after all these things, Jesus met 2 women in a garden. And what does he say? Hello? No. He says, don't touch me. This is all Yom Kippur sort of language. The priest would go into the Holy of Holies and he would sprinkle blood on the altar 7 times. Different message for a different day. Sprinkle blood on the altar 7 times. And he would be a bloody, stinking mess. And here's what they believed. They believed if it worked, he survived. If it didn't work, they had to do it again. So there's a lot of pressure on this guy. They would actually tie ropes to his ankles so that if he died, they could pull him out. Like the bells still needed to be ringing. So he would sprinkle blood on the altar, and then he'd come out, and he survived, which means it all worked. But here's the thing, right? They were a superstitious group of people. They believed in ghosts. So what the priest had to do after he was done was prove that he survived in the flesh and he wasn't some sort of spiritual apparition. And he would do that by washing his hands to literally clean up from all the blood. And then he had to present his hands to be inspected. Like, hey, it's me. I made it. It's okay. Hold on a second. The gospel writers say after all these things that Jesus met his disciples in an upper room. And what's the first thing he does? He presents his hands for inspection. In other words, hey, I made it. This is me. And remember, the disciples don't jump up. They're like, it says they were terrified, thinking they were looking at a ghost. Yeah, of course. Like in their experience, dead people stay dead. And so he goes, no. Come check my hands. This is all Yom Kippur imagery. When they wouldn't do it, he said, fine, then give me something to eat. I'll prove it. And he eats and it doesn't fall through. Like he's doing bar tricks. This is Jesus going, wait a minute. Wait, this is to a Jewish audience that'd be like, wait a minute. Is this the day God just lets it all go? It's Malah, the Gethsemane. It is finished. Don't touch me. And then the presenting of the hands. But this day doesn't just center around 1 goat. It centers around 2. The first goat was the goat for the Lord. The second goat, what was his name? Everybody together? Azazel. And Azazel means take him away. Here is the account of Azazel. Next slide. When Aaron is finished making atonement for the most holy place, the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall then bring forward the live goat. That's Azazel. He is to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and sins of the Israelites. All their sins. Now, I took the time, I looked that word up in Hebrew, and the word there is actually all. Because when all says all, let's leave all, and let's not make exceptions to all, because when we start making exceptions to all, we run the risk of our failure one day not being in the category of all. So let's quit making exceptions to all, because Christians cut their story in half when they make exceptions to all. So when all says all, let's leave all, because if we ever make exceptions to all, we run the risk of one day our failure not counting in the category of all. So when all says all, let's leave all, because all is better if it's all. But Shane, he's a drug addict. I know. There's so much pain in that. And I hope he can change his life. But the thing that we don't want getting in the way of that person changing their life is the belief that their sin is outside of the scope of God's love. Yeah, he's a drug addict, and he'll have an opportunity to sow new seeds next year. And we want that. But all is all. But Shane, he left his wife for another woman. I know, and there's a lot of pain in that, and trust me, he'll regret that. But all means all. And he likely doesn't have a do-over, and he's likely regretting it, and he's not telling everybody he's regretting it, but he's what we don't want. We want that man to change his life and not repeat everything in a cycle of death. We want that, but what we don't want is the thing getting in the way of him changing his life is the belief that what I did is outside the purview of all. So if you're within the sound of my voice, and if you're wondering if your regret fits into the purview of God's grace for you, my only question is whatever you did, does it fit in the category of all? And put on them all their sins, and put them on the goat's head, so they attach it to the goat. He shall send the goat away, there's that idea, take him away, into the desert in the care of a man appointed to the task. Keep going. The goat will carry on itself all their sins to a solitary place, and the man shall release it into the desert. The man who releases the goat as the Azazel must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Afterwards he may come into the camp. So this day doesn't center around one goat, it centers around two. The first goat was the goat for the Lord, and the second one, what was his name? Everybody together? Azazel. And Azazel means take him away. Here is the goat for Azazel. Next slide. They would stand this goat in front of everybody. So you have a terrified goat. He knows what just happened to his best friend inside, He's not real happy about it. And they would put all the sins on this goat. Everybody got your bucket? Everybody got your bucket of regret? We're going to place it on the head of this goat. It's going right here. Everybody picture all the pain, all the thing you're carrying, the burden you're carrying. We're going to put it on something else. We're going to put it on this goat. And they would symbolize it by attaching it to the goat's head. They would do so with a scarlet woolen thread, a red cord. And so they would wrap the goat's head in this red cord, and he would say, behold, Israel, your sin. Behold, Israel, your sin. Hold on a second. The gospel writers say that as a part of Jesus' trial, Pilate had Jesus' head wrapped in thorns and stood him in front of the Jewish crowd. Hold on a second. If you wrap a man's head in thorns, what color would the wrapping be? Red. This is all Yom Kippur imagery. They would then walk the goat through the crowd, and they walked him through the crowd. And the priest would say, behold, Israel, your sin is being removed from you as far as the east is from the west. Behold, Israel, your sin is being removed from you as far as the east is from the west. And they would take the goat into the desert and release him. And this is where Yom Kippur gets a bit boring, because here's the problem, right? You're not allowed to do nothing. And how long does it take to take a goat as far out into the desert to where he's in a solid? Like, that's a long way, and it's a long time. And so people would just be like, in today's attention span, we'd never make it. You weren't allowed to scroll your phone. You're not allowed to sing. Can we sing? No. People will start thinking, no, that's something you did. No. Were we allowed to clap? No, because that's something you do. No. Can we speak to one another? Debatable, right? It's this whole thing just gets a little awkward. So what they started doing is they started throwing the goat off the closest cliff, right? Why? Because it's expedient. It's quicker, a little bit easier. Plus, the Mishnah tells this great story that there was one Yom Kippur that 4 days later, the goat found his way home, right? And so everybody's sins returned, right? So you can't have that, right? Oh, by the way, that idea made its way into English metaphors. So when you were a kid, if you did something stupid and your friends were picking at you for doing something stupid, what would your grandmother tell you? Hey, don't let them get your goat. Don't let them bring your goat up. Don't let them do that. It's a metaphor that's based in Yom Kippur about bringing someone's failure back to the light to embarrass them. Pause. At Cornerstone Church, we have to make a choice to be goat removers and never goat bringers. When we bring up someone's failure, we're actually becoming the weapon in the hand of the enemy that God has removed. And I don't think we want to do that. I don't think we want to be in that position. But there's something glorified about that. Tom Wright, N.T. Wright, the most brilliant New Testament theologian on earth, can do the most awesome exegesis of Romans 4 you've ever heard in your life, and he'll put it on YouTube and get 800 views, but some dipstick with a microphone just bringing up everybody's failure gets 900,000 views. That's on us. If we quit clicking on it, they'd quit doing it because they'd quit making money from it. And so what happens is the Christian message is your sins are forgiven, your debt has been canceled, you're free, you're free, you're free. But then we spend our life on the internet bringing up people's goats. And here's the thing, right? So at some point, here, I believe this with all my heart, right? The best days for Cornerstone Church are ahead of it, not behind it. If you don't believe that, you're in the wrong place, right? Now, what that means is that hundreds more people are going to be coming through these doors. And here's the choice Cornerstone has to make. We have to make a choice whether we're going to be goat bringers or goat removers. Because here's the question underneath all of it is this: is Cornerstone Church a place where I can get a fresh start, a second chance, a clean slate, and an opportunity to write a better story, where I can live in surprise, hope, wonder, astonishment, awe, amazement, and my tomorrow's not simply repeated yesterday. If I'm faithful to sow new seeds, this group of people will celebrate the new harvest on my life, right? And that has got to be the case. If you've been bringing up goats, I'm urging you to stop. And the next time somebody brings up a failure of yours, particularly if it's over a year old, here's what I want you to do. Just go, you're right. It's true. I just don't see my goat anywhere. And see what they do. They would release it into the desert. The man that was put in charge of the Azazel, remember Jesus told Pilate, you've been given charge over me? Right? He would cut a piece of the red cord, and he'd hang it from the temple door. And the Talmud talks about on this day, a miracle would happen every year on this day. So when the guy went into the Holy of Holies, he had to live. But this was, the red cord would turn white in front of everybody. And it was an indication from heaven, this worked. It's mentioned in the Bible, in Isaiah, come now, let us reason together. Though your sins are like scarlet, they'll be made white as snow. This is a Yom Kippur reference. And could you imagine, just for a second, can you imagine being at this celebration and you're the first person to see the cord turn white? What would the feeling would start? But here's the thing, you're not allowed to do nothing. Your temptation would be to shout and sing and scream and celebrate and slap high fives, but you're not allowed to do anything. So there'd be this buzz, because you're not allowed to do anything on Yom Kippur until Yom Kippur ends. And Yom Kippur ends with a simple move. There was a chair up where everybody could see. And when the priest noticed that the cord had turned white, he would back up to that chair and simply sit down. And when the priest sat down, it was the indication to the people, everything's been done. Nothing else is left to be accomplished. No one can boast because no one did anything other than God. And at this point, you were free to do what you wanted to do. And at that point, they went nuts. They would sing and dance and shout and scream and blow horns and slap high fives and celebrate with one another. Why? And this is so important. It wasn't singing in order to get God to act. It was singing because he acted, right? That's different, right? Right? Doing something thinking you can get God to do something, that's witchcraft, right? Worship is not doing something to get God to act. Worship is putting yourself in the way of what God is already doing, right? And so they would just go, why? Because when you get a deep revelation that you don't have to carry this year's regret into next year, that's worth celebrating. When you get a deep revelation that they don't have to carry it, it was a community thing. It was, I don't want mercy for myself and justice for you. I'm celebrating your freedom too, and your freedom too, and your freedom too. And they would go absolutely bonkers. There was this guy that experienced a Yom Kippur, and he wrote down his testimony. It'd be like if I wrote a journal entry about my experience today. Here's what he wrote. Next slide. He then fastened a scarlet woolen thread to the head of the goat for Azazel, and laying his hands upon it again, recited the following confession of sin and prayer for forgiveness. O Lord, I've acted with iniquities, trespasses, and sins before you. I, my household, the sons of Aaron, your holy ones. O Lord, forgive the iniquities, transgressions, and sins that I, my household, and Aaron's children, your holy people, committed before you. Keep going. As it is written in the law of Moses, your servant, for on this day he'll forgive you to cleanse you from all your sins before the Lord, and you will be clean. This is Yom Kippur. But wait a minute. A few minutes here about Jesus. I want to test your knowledge of the Easter story. So Easter is very important to the Christian tradition. So if you're here and this is like you're early on in your church experiences, and you might be going, what's the deal with Easter? Why is what right? Now if you're old guard, you're like, oh, of course Easter's important. But if you're not, I don't want to speak down to you, but I don't want to assume you know something you don't know. Easter's important at the most base layer because it tells all of our stories, right? So it says that suffering, death, injustice, and pain get a word, but it doesn't get the last word. It says that if you're going through suffering, pain, and injustice, it doesn't mean you have a faith problem. It's just a part of life. But the Easter story is that all those suffering, death, and pain get a word. It never gets the last word. The last word is hope, surprise, resurrection, all wonder, astonishment. And we need more of that and less despair. Despair is the belief that my tomorrow simply a repeat of yesterday. So the Easter story shows how God in flesh goes through the same thing we do so that he can go, yeah, I get it. He wants to, in other words, the Easter story is God saying, it's not just enough to accept people. I want to understand what it was like to be them, right? And so the Easter story is really, really important for us, and pastors love it, right? Except for the fact that the Easter season, you only have one story. And as good as that story is, you only have one story. So if you pastored for 35 years, your people at the same place, your people, there's an unspoken pressure to come up with something new about it. Like Joey mentioned that today. I've used every scripture in the whole Bible on giving, and so I'm going to come up with right? There's pressure to do that. And so what pastors often do is they'll take one of the 3 or 4 Sundays leading up to Easter, and they'll do a play, or they'll let the children act out the story, right? Or they'll do something, right? And so everybody here has seen these. Everybody here saw the Passion of the Christ, right? No, once you saw it once, right? Right? It's not the Passion of the Christ is not repeat viewing, right? You don't just set aside Friday night and go, I'm going to sit down and check out the Passion of the Christ, right? Because it's just a guy getting beat to death, right, by people with power. So it's that, but in every Passion story, every Passion play, everything about this, the same thing happens, right? Because it's the same story. Pilate is at the end of his rope with Jesus, right? And he doesn't think he's guilty of treason, but he doesn't want to start a riot because that's more important to Caesar. So what he does is he absolves himself from his responsibility, and he says, I'll leave it up to you. What do you want me to do with him? And whatever you say, I'll do what you tell me to do. And the whole crowd start chanting something famous. What do they chant? Everybody together? Crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. It's in every movie, every Passion play, every church production, that's what they say. Here's the problem. That's not what they said. Here's John 19. Check this out. Next slide. It was the day of preparation for Passover week, about the 6th hour. "Here's your king," Pilate said to the Jews, but they shouted, "Take him away, take him away, crucify him." Hold on a second. If a Jewish crowd is chanting, "Take him away," what word are they saying? Azazel, Azazel, Azazel. Is this the day God just lets it all go? But wait a minute. Leviticus says someone has to be put in charge of the Azazel. And after the person in charge of the Azazel is done, he has to wash his hands. Next slide. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but instead an uproar was starting, he took water and he washed his hands in front of the crowd. Is this the day God just lets it all go? But wait a minute, Yom Kippur ends when the priest, Hebrews chapter 10, next slide. Day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties. Again and again, he offers the same sacrifices, which can never take away sin. But when this priest has offered for all time one sacrifice for sin, he's now sat down at the right hand of God. The New Testament message is our priest is sitting, which leads to this question: have we ever presented the gospel in such a way that makes Jesus stand back up? It's like, "Jesus, I know you did it all, but we really need people to do it our way, at our altar, in our ritual, at our moment, at our, like, ugh." You say, "Shane, you don't know what I did." I don't. And I know there's a lot of pain in it. But the good news is better than your failure. The good news is the priest is sitting, and our lack of faithfulness never compromises God's faithfulness. There's this guy named John, one of Jesus' disciples, and he writes his thoughts about what he saw. Here, this is 1 John. Next slide. "My dear children," I love that, dear children, "I write this to you so that you will not sin." Pause. The only appropriate response to the grace of God is to choose to live better. If you fail a test and the teacher gives you a do-over, write different answers. If you break the law and a lawyer gets you off, stop breaking the law. If you hit a bad golf shot and they give you another go, aim differently, right? If you get a clean slate, write a better story. If you get a fresh field, sow new seeds. Whatever metaphor you like the best. The only appropriate response to God emptying your bucket is to not fill the same exact bucket every single year. Now, if you show up every year with the same exact bucket of regrets, will God forgive you? Yeah. How many times? Every time. Why? Because your lack of faithfulness doesn't compromise God's faithfulness. But the quality of your life is on the line. The opportunity of Yom Kippur is fresh field, fresh heart, fresh start. I'm going to sow seeds that work instead of seeds that bring a harvest that I need to get emptied every single year. "Dear children, I write this to you so that you will not sin." But watch what he says next. "But if anybody does sin," I love that. "Dear children, I hope you don't. But if you do," and you will, "we have one who speaks to the Father in our defense, Jesus Christ, the righteous one, whose faithfulness is never compromised by our lack of it." Right? He is the atoning sacrifice. There's that Yom Kippur word. He's the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Oh, not only for our sins, but the sins of the whole world. There's this divine, inspired reminder that you can't embrace this for you and forget that it's offered to everybody, everywhere. "Dear children, I hope you don't. But if you do, you can know that Jesus is still faithful." So how do we remember today? I need my musicians back up here, and I think that, well, they say that great teachers can summarize big thoughts in one sentence. I need 4. So here's 4 ways to remember the whole sermon. So if you're the type that can only listen to the first 3 minutes of a message, and then you tune out, and then when you feel a message winding down, you come back. Now's your time. This is your moment. This is how you know a message is coming to a close, when people I don't know are sneaking up behind me to play music. Here's how we can remember this whole thing in 4 sentences. Next slide. The hands have been washed. But Shane, it's a crime I did. I know. I know you committed a crime. I'm sure jail wasn't nice for you. You paid your price, you did it, and now you have an opportunity to sow new seeds and write a different story, because the good news is better than whatever failure it was. The good news is the hands have been washed. Maybe we could say it this way. Next slide. The cord has turned white. You say, but Shane, I went through a divorce. I know. And there was so much pain in that. I get it. I understand. I wish you wouldn't. Dear children, I wish you wouldn't have done that. But since you did, Jesus is still faithful to you. And the good news is better than that failure. The good news is that the cord has turned white. And we want you to go forward sowing new seeds instead of the same old harvest. Maybe we could say it this way. Next slide. The priest has sat down. You say, but Shane, oh man, I have this porn thing, right? And it just, I can't get away from it. And I feel lonely afterwards, but I just can't get away from it. I know, dear children, and there's a lot of pain in learning to objectify human beings and treating them as objects instead of image bearers. And I want you to be able to change your life by sowing new seeds. But the good news is better than that failure. The good news is that the cord has turned white, the hands have been washed, and the priest has sat down. That is true for you too. But maybe the best way we can remember today is simply this one. Next slide. The goat has left the building. Azazel has left the building. You say, Shane, but they're wrong about God. Of course they're wrong about God. So are you. None of us have scratched 1/1000th of 1% of what God is. And if the goat leaves for you, the goat leaves for them, and we can let everybody be free. And we can be free from feeling there's no vacancy in the Trinity for me. I don't want to carry that weight if somebody else is changing their lives. Come on. If the goat leaves for you, it leaves for them. But Shane, do you know what they did? I do. And it was horrible. But your best life is not carrying that into next year. Let it go for you. Let it go for them. Sow new seeds. The goat has left. But Shane, these people, they keep, I know, but the good news is better than that failure. I wish you wouldn't have went through any of it. But the good news is better. The good news is your goat. Say, but Shane, I had an abortion. I know. Here's the thing, right? If you had a do-over on that right now, you'd take it. But you don't. People treat you like you do. And worse than people treating you like you do, you treat yourself like you do. And I want you to know that God grieves. He loves that unborn child, and he grieves over the pain that you went through. And you'll need to hear me say this. I wish you wouldn't have. But your lack of faithfulness in that painful moment doesn't compromise God's love for you. The good news is better than that failure. It was 8 years ago. Come on now. Your goat has left, and it's time for you to let it go for you, because you being bitter at yourself is actually defiling people. It's sabotaging other things. It's time for you to be free from that. It's that. Now, I thought long and hard about how to end today. There's two ways. Neither are wrong. We're just not going to do one of them. One way to end today is to do an altar call and say, look, if you want to leave your regrets right here at the foot of the cross, we're going to have a team pray for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't want to deal with all the snot that brings. And it violates the spirit of Yom Kippur. The spirit of Yom Kippur is the feeling of freedom on the inside comes from celebration, right? And so I thought, what do I do? So here's what I can't do. I can't do this because we're Western and there's white people in the room, okay? You can't tell a room with any white people in it, go nuts. White people don't even know what that means. White people get awkward. They're like, hey. White people dance with their shoulders. It's just not good. Plus, it's awkward to tell a group of people to go nuts because people don't know what the decorum is. So what I did is I picked something that every culture is comfortable with. clapping on beat. And here's the thing, right? When you clap, there's a way you can mindlessly clap, sure. But clapping was actually individual and corporate agreement. That's why we do high fives if we celebrate, or we do a handshake agreement. When hands come together, it's like we're in this together. And so as a part of this sermon, this is not time to leave. I just want you to stand up. You've been sitting long enough. And what we're going to do is they're going to help me with this. We didn't get to practice this, so hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't, give everybody grace, okay? But what's going to happen is we're going to clap together on a beat. And faith is going to arise in this place. And the fear, the guilt, the shame, the pain, you're not going to have to carry it one more day, because the good news is better than that failure. The good news is your goat has left. So what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to your spirit, man, when we do this. This is a short exercise. And I want you to partly agree with this for yourself, but then I want you to, hey, I'm in this with you and you. We're all clapping on the same beat here. And it's like, wait a minute. And what you're going to notice is freedom is going to start rising up in your heart. And that bitterness that's defiling and rotting, it's going to lose a little bit of its power. And then the next lot, and then the next lot. And hopefully we can leave here today free. So, Mr. Drummer, can you give me that beat we talked about? Like this, here we go.
I have decided to follow Jesus. The cross before, the cross before, and I won't turn back. I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind, the cross before, and I won't turn back.
All right, just like this, I want you to do this. Get them up like this. I bless you today, my brothers and sisters, to know that the hands have been washed, the cord has turned white, the priest has most definitely sat down, and whether it's the crime, the pain, the divorce, the affair, the addiction, the abortion, may you not carry it one more day, because the good news is better than that failure. The good news is your goat has left the building. Grace and peace, everybody.
I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind, the cross before, and I won't turn back. I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind, the cross before, and I won't turn back. I won't turn back. And I won't turn back. God. Are you free? I said, are you guys free? Isn't that wonderful? Part of Yom Kippur is I didn't even know he was going to preach that. And so when I talked about sowing and reaping, that was part of Yom Kippur. At the end, you had an opportunity to sow. You can't hear the gospel message and not want to sow into it, because you're free. Some of you need to sow into another season and say, I'm free. You know what? This next season, coming into this next year, I'm going to end the year the way 2026 is going to start the year. I'm going to end the year free. I'm going to start the new year free. And baby, you ain't stopping me in 2026. We want to bless his ministry. We want to bless him. These guys are going to sing, and then I want you to sow a seed, different ways to give. We're going to make sure he goes home blessed. He's one of my good friends. I'm here to tell you that he could be anywhere, but he's here, right here at Cornerstone Church with us, right here, right now. So listen, let's take an opportunity and sow a seed right here. You ready? Once you come up here, come on, everybody, let's boom. Meredith, sow a seed. Let's go. Come. I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind, the cross before. I won't turn back. Woo! I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind. musicians on your way back. Hug a couple people on your way out.